The roar of the crowd inside the Caesars Superdome was deafening, a sea of cheers echoing off the massive walls. Super Bowl 59 was in full swing, with millions watching from every corner of the globe. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles were locked in a fierce battle for the championship title. At halftime, acclaimed rapper Kendrick Lamar took the stage, delivering a dynamic performance with special guest SZA. But amidst the dazzling halftime show and the electric energy of the game, Firefighter Ethan Carter found himself in the bowels of the stadium, navigating the narrow service corridors. The faint hum of the Superdome's generators accompanied him as he responded to a routine medical call. Ethan had been stationed at the Superdome as part of the emergency response team, a precaution for an event hosting tens of thousands of fans. His team's presence was supposed to be just that, precautionary. But as he walked through the dimly lit passageways, his instincts whispered that something felt off. As he turned a corner, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A figure stood in the shadows, barely illuminated by the flickering fluorescent lights. The man was dressed in a referee's uniform, but something about it looked dated, as if it belonged to a bygone era. His face was pale, and his expression unreadable. Ethan's pulse quickened. "Sir, are you lost?" Ethan called out, his voice firm but calm. The figure didn't respond. Instead, he raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the ceiling above them.
It will happen again.
"The third quarter," the man said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It will happen again. You have to stop it." Before Ethan could respond, the man turned and disappeared into the shadows. Ethan rushed forward, but the corridor was empty. No doors, no exits, just silence. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. He radioed his team, but they dismissed his report, chalking it up to the stress of the event. Still, Ethan couldn't shake the image of the referee or the cryptic warning. He decided to head toward the main generator room, just in case. As he entered the massive room filled with humming machinery, Ethan's flashlight beam caught a glint of exposed wiring near the base of the scoreboard's power feed. A small spark flickered. Ethan's heart raced as he inspected it closer. A power surge was building, and if it wasn't addressed, it could trigger an electrical explosion. The cryptic warning rang in his ears. Whatever was coming, Ethan knew he had to act fast. Ethan crouched by the exposed wiring, his mind racing. The faint spark he had seen wasn't random. It was a sign of a larger problem brewing. He could feel the vibration of the machinery beneath his boots, the subtle tremor signaling an unstable system. Every instinct as a firefighter told him he didn't have much time. Reaching for his radio, Ethan called the command post. "I'm in the generator room. I've got a situation here. Looks like a potential power surge near the scoreboard feed. I need an engineer down here now." Static crackled before a voice responded. "Copy that, Ethan. Sending someone your way. Stay put." But staying put wasn't an option. Ethan's eyes darted to the emergency shutoff panel across the room. If the surge escalated, an automatic circuit trip wouldn't be fast enough. He'd seen situations like this before. Systems designed for safety failing under pressure. He'd have to handle it manually. As he moved toward the panel, a faint sound stopped him in his tracks. It was distant, almost imperceptible. A whistle, long and mournful, cutting through the mechanical hum. Ethan froze, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. It wasn't a sound that belonged in the Superdome. Slowly he turned, scanning the room with his flashlight. In the far corner, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the same man, the old referee. His uniform seemed to shimmer under the harsh beams of the overhead lights, and his face bore an expression of deep sorrow. He pointed again, this time toward the exposed wiring Ethan had just inspected. "You can stop it," the man said, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. "But you must be quick." Ethan blinked, and the figure was gone. The air felt heavier, as if the room itself held its breath. Ethan shook his head, forcing himself to focus. Hallucinations didn't matter right now. What mattered was preventing a catastrophe. He reached the shutoff panel and yanked it open. His eyes scanned the maze of switches and labels, his training guiding him through the chaos. As he began flipping the necessary breakers, a tremor ran through the floor. The power surge was escalating, and the vibrations rattled the massive scoreboard above the field. Ethan worked quickly, shutting down the affected circuits one by one. Finally, the hum of the machinery settled into silence. The tremors ceased, and the threat seemed neutralized. Breathing heavily, Ethan leaned against the wall. But as he caught his breath, his flashlight illuminated something carved into the panel. A name, James Miller. Beneath it, the words, February 3rd, 2002. A chill swept through Ethan. He recognized the date. It was the day of Super Bowl 36, the game played in this very dome over 2 decades ago. Ethan couldn't pull his eyes away from the name etched into the panel. James Miller. He vaguely remembered hearing that name before, perhaps in an old story or a fleeting mention during training, but it wasn't until he recalled the date, February 3rd, 2002, that the connection clicked. Super Bowl 36 had its share of historical moments, but it also carried whispers of a tragedy few ever spoke of. James Miller was the head referee for that game, a respected figure in the NFL who had suffered a fatal heart attack in the Superdome's very halls. Officially, his death was attributed to natural causes, but rumors swirled for years, fueled by accounts of strange occurrences during that fateful game. Ethan felt a chill as he traced his fingers over the name. Was it possible the figure he'd seen was Miller's ghost? The rational side of his mind rejected the idea, but he couldn't deny the eerie coincidences. The warning, the power surge, the timing of it all. Shaking off the thought, Ethan focused on the task at hand. He radioed the command post to confirm the surge had been neutralized. "Powers stabilize," he said, his voice steady but laced with unease. "No immediate danger, but I'd recommend a full inspection of the system." "Good work, Ethan," the voice on the other end replied. "We'll send a team down after the game. You're cleared to return to your station." But Ethan didn't move. Something was keeping him there, an inexplicable pull. He scanned the room one last time with his flashlight, searching for any additional signs of trouble or answers. His beam caught the edges of a yellowed piece of paper pinned to the wall near the circuit panel. It looked out of place among the modern machinery. Curious, Ethan stepped closer and peeled the paper from its spot. The edges were frayed and the ink had faded, but the words were still legible. "Watch the third quarter. Not all disasters strike twice." A lump formed in Ethan's throat. The handwriting was jagged, rushed, as if written in a moment of panic. The words felt like a puzzle, their meaning elusive but urgent. His radio crackled again, breaking his thoughts. "Ethan, everything all right down there?" He hesitated before replying. "Yeah, just wrapping up." As he folded the note and slipped it into his pocket, Ethan decided he couldn't ignore the warning. Whether it was the lingering spirit of James Miller or just a series of strange coincidences, something told him that the danger wasn't over. Heading back toward the surface, Ethan's mind raced. If there was any truth to the note, the third quarter could hold the key. Whatever disaster Miller had alluded to, Ethan was determined to prevent it, even if he didn't fully understand what he was up against. When he finally emerged into the bustling hallways of the Superdome, the halftime show was nearing its end. Fans cheered and sang along, oblivious to the tension Ethan carried with him. He glanced up at the massive scoreboard looming over the field, its lights now steady and bright. For a moment, everything seemed normal, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was just beginning. As the third quarter began, the Superdome buzzed with excitement. Fans roared as Patrick Mahomes commanded the Chiefs on the field. But Ethan's focus wasn't on the game. A faint tremor beneath his boots and a mechanical hum near the scoreboard tightened the knot in his stomach. The cryptic note's warning, "Not all disasters strike twice," replayed in his mind as he pushed through the crowded lower bowl. His firefighter instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. "Ethan, where are you going?" Mike's voice crackled over the radio. "Something's off with the scoreboard," Ethan replied, weaving through fans. The crowd erupted in cheers as the Eagles intercepted a pass, drowning out most of Mike's response. Ethan didn't wait for confirmation, sprinting toward the service corridors beneath the stadium. The tremors intensified, joined by a rhythmic clanking, like machinery under strain. Bursting into the control room, Ethan found a technician frantically scanning monitors. "What's happening?" Ethan demanded. The system's glitching, the technician stammered. Power loads fluctuating. If this keeps up, Ethan didn't need him to finish. A surge like this near the massive scoreboard could cause catastrophic failure. Shut it down, Ethan ordered. I can't. It'll kill power to the entire stadium. Ignoring the protest, Ethan grabbed his radio. Mike, I need backup in the control room. We've got a potential failure near the scoreboard. Before Mike could respond, a loud crack echoed through the corridors. Lights flickered, then stabilized, but the tremor under Ethan's feet grew stronger. The technician pointed to a monitor flashing a red alert. The support beams, they're failing. Ethan's heart pounded as he processed the data. The scoreboard, hanging over the field like a colossal chandelier, was at risk of collapsing. Without hesitation, Ethan yanked the emergency shutoff lever, plunging the scoreboard into darkness. Alarms buzzed as the vibrations ceased, leaving a tense silence. "Are you crazy?" the technician exclaimed. But Ethan didn't flinch. Mike's voice crackled over the radio. "Ethan, what's going on?" "We stopped a disaster," Ethan replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "But it's not over." As stadium lights flickered back on, Ethan's eyes narrowed. James Miller's ghost had warned him about the third quarter. The immediate danger was gone, but the feeling lingered. Something worse might still be lurking in the shadows. The stadium buzzed with confusion as the scoreboard blacked out, leaving fans murmuring uneasily. Announcers brushed it off as a technical hiccup, but Ethan knew better. This wasn't just a glitch, it was a near disaster. Though the tremors had ceased, Ethan's dread lingered. With flashlight in hand, he navigated the dim service corridors, recalling James Miller, the spectral referee, and his cryptic warning, "It will happen again." James's words convinced Ethan there was more to uncover. His radio crackled. "Ethan, status update. Did you find the source of the surge?" Mike's voice asked. "I cut power to the scoreboard," Ethan replied. "Structural instability. It could have collapsed." "Good call," Mike said. "But the crowd's restless. Wrap it up and get back." Ethan hesitated. "Copy that." Still, he wasn't ready to leave. Compelled to search further, he returned to the maintenance area beneath the scoreboard. The air was cold, metallic, and stung his nostrils. His flashlight revealed dusty, obsolete equipment shoved into a corner. Above it hung a tarnished plaque, "In memory of James Miller, 2002. A chill gripped Ethan as he crouched to inspect faint scratch marks on the floor. Something heavy had been dragged toward a grated vent. Using a crowbar, he pried it open. Dust filled the air as the grate clattered to the floor, revealing a crawl space leading into the stadium's depths. Ethan's instincts screamed to turn back, but he couldn't ignore the pull of the mystery. He radioed Mike. "I found a crawl space. I'm going in." "Ethan, wait!" Mike's voice cut off as Ethan climbed inside. The crawl space was cold and suffocating, the air thick with dampness. After tense minutes, he emerged into a hidden chamber lined with storage boxes and discarded memorabilia. In the center stood a dusty table with a neatly folded referee's uniform and a faded photograph of James Miller. Etched into the table was a single word: justice. The room grew colder, shadows deepening as Ethan pieced it together. James's warning wasn't just about the scoreboard, it was something deeper, something unfinished. Mike's urgent voice crackled through the radio. "Ethan, we need you back topside." Ethan placed the photo back on the table, jaw tight. "I'm on my way," he replied, but as he turned to leave, the chill lingered. This wasn't over. Ethan emerged from the crawl space, burdened by what he'd discovered. The hidden chamber beneath the stadium wasn't just storage, it was a shrine, a forgotten piece of history buried under the Super Bowl's glitz. As he returned to the bustling Superdome corridors, the noise and lights above felt surreal, clashing with the eerie stillness below. Near the command station, Mike waited, his face tight with concern. "What were you doing down there?" Mike snapped. "You're supposed to watch the crowd, not chase ghosts." Ethan's voice was calm but firm. "I found something. James Miller, a referee, died here during a game decades ago. It's tied to tonight. If I hadn't cut the power..." He let the thought trail off. Mike frowned. "We'll deal with it later. For now, focus on keeping everyone safe." Reluctantly, Ethan nodded. though Harold's warning haunted him. As the third quarter began and cheers erupted, Ethan resumed his patrol, his instincts on high alert. Midway through the quarter, a faint rumble vibrated under his boots. The roar of the game nearly masked it, but Ethan felt the unnatural tremor. Gripping his flashlight, he rushed to the service corridors. The vibrations intensified near the power room. His fears were confirmed. A fault in the emergency wiring had triggered another surge, threatening the stadium's grid. Ethan worked fast, rerouting power and isolating the faulty circuit. Sweat dotted his brow as he double-checked the connections. Suddenly, a freezing gust swept through the room. "You did well, but you ignored the truth," whispered a voice behind him. Ethan spun, his flashlight cutting through shadows. For an instant, the lights flickered, revealing James Miller. His referee uniform was soaked in phantom blood, his eyes fixed on Ethan. "We never finished the game," Harold said. "He cheated, and I paid the price." Before Ethan could respond, a deafening crack erupted. Sparks flew and shadowy figures surrounded James, dragging him into the darkness. The lights stabilized, the tremors ceased, and the room fell silent. Later, as fans poured into the streets, Ethan lingered in the maintenance area, staring at James Miller's plaque. He realized James's death wasn't accidental. It was vengeance. Harold had ensured history didn't repeat itself, but his story wasn't over. Ethan walked away, determined to uncover the truth. James's spirit had saved lives tonight, but his legacy loomed in the shadows, a reminder that justice, even in death, demands its due. Thanks for watching Brave Sparks. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more powerful and inspiring stories. Stay brave, and we'll see you in the next one.